Greetings, everyone. We apologize for the lateness, some technical difficulties, but we're moving and flowing. So I have a very special guest today. Today is Financial Health Matters Part 3. The first week we did with Candace, where we talked about financial management. Second week we did with my friend Kava, where we talked about real estate and also the economy. And why am I doing this? As a social worker, and my specialty and expertise is in mental health. I firmly believe that financial health is very much a part of overall health. Many of my clients do experience I was depression, the anxiety, especially when their finances is jacked up. So if your finances is jacked up, it's definitely going to impact your health. So I'm all about empowering and providing people with practical tools they can use in their everyday life to support their whole health. So today I have a very special guest, Mr. Hannibal, and you're going to talk about credit repair and how we can support ourselves and empower ourselves around our credit. So Hannibal, take it away.
Hello, everybody. This is Hannibal. I'm from Ficofinesse, and I'm here to speak to you guys about credit, how important credit is, how to improve your credit, and how to just generally have prudent financial habits. So I don't know when we're gonna get started. If anybody has any questions, welcome, guys. Welcome in.
I don't
Subscribe.
see any questions. No questions yet. But Annabelle, I guess tell people why credit is important and how you, I guess in general, like tell them about yourself and Ficofinesse.
Okay.
For those who have no idea what Ficofinesse is and like who you are.
So I want to address why credit is important first, because everybody essentially who I am doesn't matter to your life as much as what credit is going to do for you and how it's going to impact you. It is important because every decision that you make as an adult, pretty much credit factors in that. If you're renting an apartment, if you're buying a home, if you're buying or financing a car, if you're financing furniture or any big ticket item, if you are getting braces or any medical work done, things like that, finance is always a part of those. If you're getting insurance, car insurance, health insurance, all these things factor credit in that decision making, because credit essentially briefly tells the institution how likely you are to pay them back and the risk factor that you are to pay them back or not. Credit has a number of factors, and I will describe to you guys exactly how those factors are determined. If you think of credit as a test, if you know what's on the test, you can successfully pass it. So I want you guys to think of credit in a way where you don't think it's a random number, but you know exactly what goes into it. And then we can strategically make decisions to impact those different factors. There are about 5 different factors of credit. I'm going to go into it in about a minute. Right now, while I'm telling you guys how important it is, I'm going to use this screen you see here as a demonstration. Let's say you were purchasing a new car this year, not an extravagant car, like a $20,000 car, let's say. If you didn't have a great credit score, above 670 or so, your interest rate could be somewhere in the 15% range or 19% range. Your car note would be around $500 or so. Whereas if you had a score above 740 or so, if you had an excellent credit score, your interest rate could be 2% or 3%. And the difference based on this screen that you see, and even if you don't believe me with this screen, if you go on like Carvana.com and search for any car, and then you change your credit score range from excellent to fair, you'll see exactly what I'm showing you here. If you change it to poor, you'll see that the lower your score is, the higher your interest rate is. Therefore, your payments every month will be higher, and overall, you might be paying $10,000 more or more. And it's worse with a home. A home in my area, I live in New York, so homes are $1 million and $600,000 and $500,000. I'm not sure which region all of you guys are in, but when you're dealing with a multiple $100,000 asset, the higher interest rate you have, you're paying tens of $1,000s more. Whereas you don't have to if you have a good score. So I'm going to take you guys to see exactly what all the factors of credit are. And just let me know if you guys can see this graph here.
Yes, we can see the graph, Hannibal.
So this graph here demonstrates all of the factors of credit. And when you understand this, we can definitely make decisions that impact it in a positive way. So the biggest factor is payment history. It's 35% of your score. The only bad news is that there is no room for error with payment history. The reason being is one missed payment can tank your score about 100 points, and I'll break it down why. Anything less than 97% payment history is considered bad. Now, if you've taken a year, right, and there's 12 months in a year, and you missed one payment, that means you've paid 11 out of 12 months on time. If you've done that and you divide 11 by 12, that's 91.66666667, right? So if you have a 91% payment history, that's already less than 97%, which is what's considered poor. So just one missed payment can really, really drag your score down. So it's very imperative to pay your bills on time. Now, there's a little good news. On time doesn't mean on time in the way you think it might. A late payment is 30 days late. So if you owed a payment on the 1st and you paid on the 14th or the 17th or the 20th, it's still not a late payment. When you get to the 30 days late, that's when it's a late payment. So at least pay the minimum or $1 more than the minimum for any accounts that report to your credit on time. There's some accounts that never report to your credit, so you don't have to be as meticulous with those. But for accounts that do, you want to make sure you're paying on time because that's the biggest factor of your credit. The second biggest factor of credit is what you see here, utilization ratio, otherwise known as capacity and amounts owed. So whatever credit they extend you, they want to see that you use a very responsible amount of that credit limit. So if they give you $1,000 credit limit, they don't want you spending more than 30% of that, which would be $300. So they don't want you to over leverage yourself. So that's generally the rule of thumb. Anything below 30% utilization is good. 10% utilization is absolutely the optimal amount that you should use. Most people try to impact this factor, which is utilization ratio, by paying their cards or accounts down. But there's also a flip side to that coin. You can have a lower utilization by getting more credit. And in our community, sadly, there's like a fear of credit. There's misconceptions about credit. And we don't get to leverage the full benefit of it, not understanding it. So I'm going to really, really break it down for you guys so you guys can really benefit from it. Contrary to popular belief, the more credit you have, the better for your score. And I'll give you a very simple example why. Let's say you had $1,000 limit. Therefore, you should only spend 30% of that $1,000. So you shouldn't spend more than $300, right? Let's say the whole month rolled around and an emergency popped up and you had to spend $100 more. So now you've gone from a $300 balance to a $400 balance. And $400 is 40% of $1,000. So you've moved from a range where it's good at 30% to a range that's bad, which is 40% with just $100. That's bad on your score because if you have a 400, which is 40% of your credit limit, you're spending too much utilization. Now let's take a different example. Let's say you had $10,000 of credit limit and all month you spend $300. Then something happened, you had to spend $100 more. Now you're at $400, which is only 4% of $10,000. You've moved from 300 to 400, which is from 3 to 4%, instead of moving from 30 to 40%. I hope that example demonstrated to you that the more available balance you have, the less your score fluctuates with the same dollar amount.
I guess, can you
reiterate?
Can you repeat that?
Absolutely. The less, I'm going to give the numbers again, but the more available balance you have, the
Mm-hmm.
less your score will fluctuate with your spending. So if you only have $1,000, to go from 300 to 400 is to go from 30% to 40%, which is bad. If you had $10,000 as an overall balance, if you spent as an overall limit, if you spent 300 and then went to 400, you would have went from 300, which is 3% of $10,000, to 400, which is 4% of 10,000. So you move from 3 to 4% utilization instead of moving from 30 to 40% utilization. If
Okay.
you have more credit, it's going to benefit you.
So far, we got two things that impact your credit: the payment history, utilization. What else is there?
So, yes, I'm going to move on to the other factors. But I really wanted to stress that there's another side of the coin to lowering your utilization. You want to have a low utilization. You want your utilization to be below 30%, but you can either pay your cards down or you can get more credit. If you're
Okay.
automatically going to
It's
lower your
not always
utilization.
paying things down. You can also get more credit.
Yes. And if you have a lower utilization, your score will go up because you're where you're supposed to be. It's like a
How many percentage is utilization in your credit?
you should spend no more than 30%. I'll scroll down to this bottom screen to really show you what the ranges are. Here we go.
Okay.
This is the utilization range that's good and bad. So below 10% is the best that you should have. If you're below 10, it's the best for the algorithm of credit. Below 30 is a must. You absolutely should not be above 30% credit utilization. I'm not going to even discuss the rest because I really must stress to you that you should be below 30%. So whatever limits you have, you multiply it by 0.3, right? So give me a random number as a credit limit, just so we can go over it. Any random balance.
Of minimum of a what? The minimum balance?
Give me a random credit limit that somebody might have, just so we can do the math right now.
A credit limit. You mean the FICO score?
No, just give me a random, like, let's say they have 10,000, 5,000, 4,000, 8,000, 20,000, just a random amount of credit limit that a credit card company would give you. If you had a brand new Visa card, which limit?
6,000.
6,000. So what we're going to do is multiply 6,000 by 0.3. That's 30%. When we multiply 6,000 by 0.3, that's going to be 1,800. So if someone had a $6,000 credit limit, they should spend no more than 1,800.
Oh, wow.
Ideally, they should spend no more than 10%, which is 600.
Really? With $6,000?
Yeah, you're always 1,800 is 30% of $6,000. You shouldn't spend more than 30%, as you see, of your limit.
Got it.
Now, that's why we should always be getting more credit, because it's very hard to like maintain life with just 1,800.
Right.
So if you showed you used it responsibly, you can always extend your current limits. You can always apply for new credit if you're using it responsibly. So that was the biggest, those two factors that we went over, payment history and utilization ratio, are the biggest factors of your credit. They're 65% combined. And they're something that only us as consumers control. No one else controls how often we pay on time and how much we're using. Those are the biggest factors. That's why they're stressed first. The next factor is average length of credit. And that's an average of how long you've had your accounts. So they take the length of time that you've had your accounts and divide them by the number of accounts you have. That's like how you arrive at an average. So anything less than 4 years is considered fair, and anything less than 2 years is considered poor. So you want more than 4 years of credit history. Now, sometimes, being that we've been taught to fear credit, we don't have credit history at all. Like, it was wild for me to have credit history because I didn't know better. I just like paid everything with a debit card or cash, and I didn't have credit history. So if you don't have credit history, or if you have credit history that amounts to less than 4 years, One, usually only time impacts that, but you can also force yourself to have more years by having what's called an authorized user. This is if you know somebody that's responsible. If you know and trust somebody that's responsible with their credit, they can add you on as an authorized user on their credit lines, and their credit history will report to your credit report. Now they don't have to, they don't have to risk themselves. They don't have to like give you a credit card itself so you can run up the bill, but they can just report their credit onto yours. And it's something that I need our community to do more of. If you're a person that knows you're responsible with credit use, bestow that on someone you care about, your niece, your nephew, your son, your cousin, grandchild, grandparents. Help somebody else get good credit so that they can help somebody else, you know. Again, it doesn't risk you unless you give them an actual card. It's not a bad thing. Now, we must be careful when we're having authorized users or having people make us their authorized user, because the key is responsible use, right? If your grandma adds you onto her cards, which gives you a long length of credit, right? But if she hasn't paid her bills on time every month, that's bad, right? Or if she uses her balance, that's bad. So you want to only add on someone's credit that responsibly uses it, that pays it on time, and that doesn't use a lot. But that's something that you do want to do that might give you more length of credit if you don't have enough on your own.
Right.
The next factor, and as I'm breaking this down to you, hopefully it'll be apparent that your score is not at all random. It's a combination of all of these factors. So if I look at anybody's credit report, based on the things that are on their credit report, I can tell them what things to tweak to impact their credit the way they need it to be. So I'm going to go into the next factor. We did payment history. We did utilization ratio. We did average length of credit. Now this factor is called new credit, otherwise known as inquiries. Whenever you apply for credit, you're going to get an inquiry, or otherwise known as a hard inquiry. If you check your own scores, it is not going to be what's called a hard pull. It's going to be what's called a soft pull. So you're able to check your credit as much as you want for educational purposes, and it won't impact you. But if you apply for credit, you will get an inquiry. Now, inquiries are only 10% of your score, so it's not a lot. It's not a major factor. The only bad news is that cumulatively, if you have too many inquiries, it's a red flag, and banks will reject you at that point. If you have too many inquiries. And I like to give this analogy. If you're a woman, right, and a guy is pursuing you, and he's in your DMs, but you know he's in your sister, cousin, homegirl, coworker, everybody on the block's DMs, you might stay away from that person, right? Red flag, because he's like for everyone. Banks are thinking the same way. If you're searching for too much credit too soon, it's a red flag to them, and they'll probably reject you. Like I had two clients like a week and a half ago, and they both had 740 credit scores, and I helped them get like tremendous trade lines. They got approved for like cards with no interest for 2 years, perks like rewards, miles, all that kind of stuff. By the time we reached the third card, they got approved. When we went to apply for the fourth card, and they had $100,000 of income every year and a 740 score at least, the fourth card rejected them because we applied for 3 cards right then and there. So by itself, inquiries don't impact you much, but altogether, too much will be a red flag. Now, a lot of people get a lot of inquiries when they do stuff like buying a car, right? Because if you go to the dealership, they'll run your credit a lot. So anytime you're doing something, I want people to be mindful and thoughtful about what they're applying to. When you go to a store and they're offering you store cards, no matter what they say, I don't want you to get it, right? Use your inquiries like sparingly, because know that you don't have a lot before it starts getting bad. You probably have like 5 or 6 before you start getting in the territory that you don't want to be. So you don't want to waste one of your inquiries on a Victoria's Secret card, because you can't really use that everywhere, and the interest rates are not good. I want you guys to be getting that have 0% interest and that earn you rewards and cash back. One of my clients, they were caught on a layover for like 12 hours. Having a Chase Sapphire rewards card, they were able to be in a lounge. They got like a robe, shower, wine, food, massage, all that kind of good stuff, right? Certain cards have good perks. That's the type of things I want. That's the type of accounts I want you guys to have. So don't apply for something that doesn't give you perks, rewards, no annual fee, no interest. Like that's the kind of things I want you guys to have. So I'm going to go into the last factor, which is type of credit used, otherwise known as account mix. This is essentially where credit bureaus want to know that you can manage different types of credit well. Installment loans, revolving loans, auto loans, student loans, credit cards. They want to know that you can handle different types of credit well. All these factors are exactly what makes up your score.
How many percentage the auto loans, student loans in the credit, the FICO score?
So those go into account mix. So you having different types of accounts itself factors into that 10%. They're going to say, hey, she has an auto loan, she's doing well. She has a student loan, she's doing well. She has a credit card, she's doing well. This 10%, she's going to get a good grade on this because she has different types of accounts. Instead of someone that only has credit cards or someone that only has a car loan. They want to know that you have different types of credit and you're managing it well. Having different types of credit, not applying for a lot of stuff, having a sufficient credit history where they can judge you. You can't really tell if someone's a good risk if they only had a year, right? You know, someone that had 8 years and they're still keeping their balances low and they're still paying on time and they don't apply a lot and they have different types of credit, good. So these are what you see here are the credit score ranges. This is pretty subjective. Different places will say the ranges are slightly different. Like what I've heard for the most part is above a 740 is very good. I would rather err on the conservative side. So I'm going to say above 740 is very good. We should strive to be above 740 so we can be in a very good and excellent range. If you're in a very good range, you're going to qualify for pretty much the same type of terms you would on excellent. If you're not in a very good range, then you're going to start paying more. You're going to have annual fees. You're going to have higher interest rates. You might get rejected, things like that. So we want to get you guys into the very good range. If anybody speaks to me and wants, we give completely free credit analysis. So if you guys contact us, we'll give you your own that'll tell you exactly what your score is. We'll break down to you, you know, all the factors of what's exactly making it negative or positive or something like that. Like if you have negative items like late payments, inquiries, bankruptcies, evictions, liens, tax liens, child support, anything that's a public record, we can get rid of any negative item that you have on your credit. And it would show here exactly what you have. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So question, because you did mention about student loans. I know a lot of us as millennials may have student loans.
Yes.
So I thought that did not impact your credit. So now it does impact your credit.
It does impact your credit. And remember how we're going to think of everything in strategic terms? Student loans may impact your credit for one of these 5 reasons, right? Maybe you have not on-time payment history, right? That would severely impact your credit. Just one late payment can tank your score. So picture someone that has 8 late payments. So it's a factor. Certain elements of your student loans could be bad. If you've paid on time, it won't be bad. Because if you paid on time, you'll have positive payment history. But if you have late payments, then, by the way, I didn't start this by saying, I explained to you about credit, but I didn't explain what you can do about credit.
Right.
So any negative item that you have,
Mm-hmm.
including late payments or collections or delinquencies or anything like that, they can be challenged. We all have a lot of rights as consumers in this country, whether we're residents or citizens or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is something called the Fair Credit Reporting Act. There's
Mm-hmm.
also the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. These
Mm-hmm.
are hundreds of pages of congressional law that protect us as consumers. And they dictate what the credit bureaus must do, the information that they must provide us, and the circumstances that must be in place. And they also dictate what debt collectors can do to pursue us, which is not a lot. So I'm going to break that down for you guys as well. Essentially, I can go into a bunch of technical terms, but I'll try not to. In a nutshell, what the Fair Credit Reporting Act determines is that everything on your credit report has to be 100% accurate, 100% timely, and 100% verifiable. So that's not 96%, it's not 94%, it's not 92%, it's 100%, right? So I'll pose this hypothetical question to you. If you look at your credit reports from all three bureaus, most of the time, is the information the same on
No.
all? Now, sometimes I see credit reports all day. So sometimes the date it opened is different on two different bureaus. Sometimes the amount owed is different. Sometimes, what else? It's like a lot of terms. Sometimes the status is different. One might say charged off, one might say in collections, right? So 2 + 2 is always 4, right?
Right.
2 + 2 is never 7. So if you have an accurate answer, it's always going to be the same. So if Equifax is saying it's open on April 1st and Experian says it was open on April 7th, that's not 100% accurate. So even if you truly owed an account, but the account said it was open on a different date, or one said it's in collections, one said it's charged off, one said it's open, one said it's paid, that's not 100% accurate. So by those grounds alone, it can be removed from your credit report. It has to be 100% accurate, 100% timely, and 100% verifiable. So the timely part is nothing above 7 years can be on your report from the statute of limitations. And the verifiable part is the really good part, right? I know we're on YouTube, and I usually wouldn't admit this to most people because, I have brown skin and stuff, but I feel like OJ did kill Nicole, but they couldn't prove it, right? It's the same thing with credit. Like, you can really owe something, an account can really be yours, but the burden of proof is not on you. The burden of proof is on the credit bureaus, and it's on the creditors. Something is yours. Like, when I first started this journey, like many years ago, when I had like a 500 score, I really had a collections account because I never returned the box to Dish Network. And Dish Network isn't watching this YouTube, but I never returned the box to Dish Network. And as you know, when you don't return equipment, they charge you like $1,000 or something like that.
Yeah, pretty
I'm like, I'm not paying $1,000 for this, but I never returned the box. So it's my fault. It was my account. I really owed the $1,000. And then Dish Network, after the time, they charge it off and they send it to a collection agency. So that was really my account. But when it got to a collection agency, they couldn't prove it. So it had to go away. I disputed it, and they have 30 days to substantiate my claim. They couldn't prove it, so it got removed.
Why couldn't they prove it? I'm curious.
There's a lot of reasons why they can't prove it. One, by the time it got to collections, it's not with Dish Network anymore. It's with a third party, right? And the way that works is your original creditor, at some point when they realize they're not going to collect from you, they charge off your account as a loss. And they either do this on their taxes or they do it on their insurance. So they recover the money that they've lost on you, right? So if you owe them $1,000, they'll charge it off. And now that $1,000, they either pay less taxes on it or they claim it on their insurance. So your original creditor got that debt satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did that happen, then they sell the information to a debt collection company. So the person who you owed now has had the debt wiped away
Mm-hmm.
and got compensated by a third party to buy the information. So that third party might have paid pennies on the dollar, like 10% or 30% to get this account to collect for it. So if I owed $1,000, they might have paid 100 or 300 to get that information to reach me and try to collect on it. Now, the reason why they won't have this information to substantiate it is if I had a Dish account and now it got sent to Portfolio Collection Company, right? That collection company is not going to have my originals, my signatures, my instruments of indebtedness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think Dish Network would have it with having millions of customers, right? Every company nowadays outsources and all kinds of stuff, right? Like if I told you to look in your closet for a receipt from a restaurant you went to in June 2017, and if you know you kept your receipts in your closet, you still would be hard pressed to find this receipt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just you and your house. Picture millions of customers. The time, energy, manpower, all that kind of stuff to retrieve your records is not going to happen.
Mm.
It's just not going to happen. It would cost more money to get that than to just remove this stuff off your credit. But most people don't know their rights and stuff like that to even challenge that kind of thing. And when people challenge, they challenge it the wrong way. Like they challenge it online. And if you do an online dispute, you like waive your rights.
Mm.
Waive your rights because of like the terms and conditions that are on those sites that waive your rights. So most times when people dispute, if they dispute and the bureau said, hey, this is verified, they just leave it at that. And they go, oh, okay, I guess it got verified. I guess I owed it. No, you have rights to the bureau actually investigating and to knowing how they came and arrived at that investigation. So
Right.
when you do it online, you don't have any more recourse after that. If you did it in writing and you reference like the Fair Credit Reporting Act that I mentioned, like different clauses in there, they have to investigate. And when they do, they have to provide the proofs I asked you for it, which is like your originals and things like that, which they're not going to have. So again, it has to be accurate, which is hard to do. And it has to be verifiable, which means they have to prove it. Another thing, like I had a T-Mobile bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you guys may see, my name is Hannibal Collins, Collins, right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
T-Mobile spelled my name Hannibal Calix, like Callix.
Mm.
100% accurate? No, it's not. So did I owe the bill? Yes. Am I Hannibal Calix? No. So that has to be removed.
Mm.
So your address being wrong, your name being misspelled, the date being wrong, it being a penny off, all these things are like, is it 100% accurate? No. If it's not 100% accurate, it must be removed. If it's not 100% verifiable, it must be removed. If it's over 7 years old, it must be removed.
So so you said the best way to get rid of things that are not 100% variable or reliable, to write a letter. What would our letter look like? Is that something that anybody can do, or you have to get somebody that like yourself to write a letter?
It is something that anybody can do. I will not say it's not something anybody can do. And we live in an information age, so you can definitely learn how to do it if you don't know how to do it. It's the we don't have to really make it fancy, right? Like if I do eggs and batter and stuff, I can make a cake. I can't make it like Carvel can, but I can make one. So your letter doesn't have to be really, really incredible and meticulous or intricate. Your letter can essentially say that my name is Hannibal and I feel like this account that is on my credit is inaccurate,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't recognize this account or anything like that, and please remove it. And you send that dispute into the bureaus and see what they determine. Now, the reason why I would say to have a professional do it is because there's nuances to disputing. There's a time frame and an order of operations to which you do stuff there's a strategy that you employ when you're doing this stuff, and that like takes time and experience to know what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you can probably get best results if you deal with a professional. But you can definitely do it yourself. Like it's like someone doing their own haircut. Like I do not trust myself to do my own haircut. Some people pull it off. I'm gonna hire a barber because I will. I don't know if everybody knows what Zeke is, but I'll Zeke my hair. I'll mess up my hairline and all that stuff. So it depends on what you want to do. Like I am a product of teaching myself, so I will never limit someone and say they shouldn't. Like when I had a 500 score, I literally read the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is hundreds of pages. I read the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. I read a bunch of books. I read a bunch of ebooks. I watched videos, things like that. So I taught myself. So it definitely can be done if you have the time and commitment to do so. Otherwise, you can, if you have better things to do with your time, you can hire someone, or if you want someone that has experience, you can do that.
Right.
What's important is that it gets done. I don't care who does it, you do it, someone else does it. Like, as long as you're taking action. If you don't take action, it's going to cost you. And to me, like the whole reason I started this journey, why it's very important, is I grew up in Bed-Stuy. I grew up in Brooklyn, like 2 blocks from Biggie. And everybody where I grew up with, everybody had bad credit. It was normal. Even something I thought about. It wasn't something, it was like par for the course. Like you had a co-signer, you just had bad credit. And if you had to pay extra for your phone bill or to turn your cable bill on, or you had to put something in a family member's name, it was just normal. So it wasn't even fathomable for me to have good credit. So I never tried to. But I didn't realize until it was too late and too expensive that's not something that I should have had that way. It took for me to try to get an apartment. Like when I live in New York City, so it's always expensive. And I had roommates at first. And when I wanted to live on my own, I got rejected for like 8 different apartments.
Wow.
Like from everywhere, from the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, I got rejected. I had a 500 score. And the one place that did take me was in Flatbush. It was years ago, so it was still the hood. It's not gentrified yet. It wasn't gentrified then. It was Flatbush. It was the hood, and it was right next door to a funeral home. Like literally next door to a funeral home. And anybody from Flatbush probably knows which funeral home it is, but it was right next door to a funeral home. So that is not if you're trying to date and have a girl and stuff, like be like, come over, and I'm next door to a funeral home. It's not an aphrodisiac. It's not an aphrodisiac at all. So, but that's the only place I could get, right, with my score. And not only that, I had to pay 5 months of rent up front to move there.
5 months of rent?
Door to a funeral home. Yes.
Wow.
5 months because I didn't have a good credit score. If you think of it from a landlord perspective, right, I'm a high risk. If I have a 500 score,
right,
it's probably likely I'm not going to pay my rent on time. So most landlords said no. The landlord that did say yes said, you know what? I'll take a risk on you, but you have to pay 5 months up front. And at that time, I was making like $35,000 a year, and 5 months of rent up front. Rent wasn't as expensive then. It was $1,400, and that was $7,000. So to ask for $7,000 from someone that was making 35 was really, really tight and really expensive. And that was the catalyst for me. That was the epiphany to me that bad credit is expensive.
So can you take us through your journey of how you repair your credit and how long it took to repair your credit?
Absolutely. So I'll give you the end story and I'll give you the journey. So from that point, 4 months later, I had a 740 score.
Wow.
The journey was I literally educated myself. I literally read a bunch of books because I couldn't afford at that point to pay somebody. I just paid $7,000 to move in. So I read a bunch of books, ebooks. I read the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Now, I'm a little different. I'm weird. Like none of that stuff really bothers me. I'll give you a little backstory. Like I worked for a real estate investment company as an acquisition manager. So I had to read foreclosure documents every day.
Mm-hmm.
So reading laws and legalese wasn't really bothersome to me. Also, I managed like 3 luxury buildings, one downtown Brooklyn and 2 in the city. So I was used to reading like credit reports, and I was used to reading like tax returns and all kinds of stuff like that. So I have like a real estate background and all that kind of stuff. So it was more in my wheelhouse to do that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But so I read that type of stuff. I read the laws. And once you read the laws, you learn how to leverage the laws. So I read that stuff. I read books. I read ebooks. I researched. I asked questions. I got a mentor, things like that. And I just did the disputes, the same disputes I would do for customers, intricate disputes for customers and stuff like that. I sent it in. I sent the letters in, certified mail. And when I did that, a lot of items fell off in the first round. Every time you send a dispute to them, they have 30 days to investigate your dispute or
Right.
remove it, right? So some of them came off the first time. Some of them I had to go back a second round and the third round, 30 days each time. By the third round, all of the negative items fell off. Now, being that I never established credit before, all I had was negative items like collections and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any positive stuff. So when I started, I also was like, you know what? I need something positive on there. Once these negatives are gone, I'm going to have no credit, which is almost as bad as having bad credit, right?
Right.
So I had to get what's called a secured card because I had no credit. I had to get like some positive items that would approve me not having credit and would report positively to the bureaus. So I got like I think Discover was my first secured card, and First Choice Bank was another secured card I got. Once those reported for like 2 months on time, then I
Mm-hmm.
was able to get, and once some of the negatives came off from my first round, I was able to get like a Capital One card. They only gave me like $300,
Okay.
right? But I had 2 secured cards by then. One, the First Choice was like 500, and the Discover I put down like 1,000. So I had 3 cards after the Capital One approved me. So having positive accounts and
Mm-hmm.
taking away negative ones month by month, eventually I had a good score
Got it.
because it was 3 months of reporting positive stuff and all the negative stuff was no longer there. Like your score is based on your report. So if you don't have late payments and collections dragging it down, I'm going to go back to the factors. This factor is going to be good, right? If there are no late payments, you're getting 35%. If you have cards now, if you have no negatives and you have cards that you have under 30%, you're 65% of the way there. It's a good score. If you don't have a lot of inquiries, you're 75% of the way there. If you have account mix, you're 85% of the way there. And this was hurting for a while, for a long time, for like over 2 years. Because anything less than 2 years, like, it's not.
It's definitely good to know that. So I guess in terms of what's going on now, what come to mind is in terms of what's going on now in the pandemic. I know a lot of people are getting like leeways in terms of not paying, their credit cards or their mortgages or whatever it is. How does that impact our credit right now?
Good question. Very good question. What happens is it's a must that you communicate with whoever your creditor is, right?
Okay.
It's not going to be automatic. Bank of America is not going to just read your mind and be like, you know what, she's late, so I'm not going to mark it as late payment. They might, but I wouldn't leave it to that chance. I would communicate with them like, hey, I'm having hardship. We are clearly stay in place. What is it called? Shelter in place. I can't work. I don't have any income. The stimulus didn't come yet. And even when it does come, it's not enough. Can we go into deferment? Can I make some arrangements?
Right.
So communicate with whoever that is that you can't make payments and have them defer it so they don't report late. That's absolutely what you want to do if you care about your credit because you don't want to have late payments. Late payments are the biggest factor, and one alone can make your score nosedive like 70, 100 points. So you definitely want to call whoever it is and make arrangements to like stall off payments. maybe it might extend the life of your loan. Like maybe you had 5 more years to go and you might have 5 more years and 4 months after that.
Got it.
Just have everything in life is negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
So have a conversation with them, and they'll be more amenable to work with you because most people are just ducking them. And you're like, I'm having a hard time. I'll work it out with you. Let's work this out. In terms of the other part of the question that you didn't really ask, there are there's like freezes and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that people should be very disciplined in this time. If you don't have to pay rent now, or your car note now, or anything like that, that doesn't mean that you won't owe it.
Right.
So you should probably set it aside because at some point it's going to be too cumbersome and onerous, which you owe. Like, let's say you don't owe until August, right?
Mm-hmm.
In August, you owe July, June, May, and April. Can you make those all at once when you go back to work? All
Mm.
those will be due. So as best as possible, try to like pay what you can, and clearly in order of priority, right? I was always taught as a kid by my mom, not as a kid, as a young adult, I was taught by my mom to pay rent first, like where you live and inhabit first. I was taught to get transportation to work. These are like the first things I was taught to do with a check. And yeah, those two priorities. If you have a place to stay and you can get to work, you'll be okay. Like, even if you have to, like food, you can go to a family member's house or you can get food stamps if you need to. So, yeah, in terms of priority, handle the priorities first. Like, I wouldn't prioritize something over transportation and over where you stay. Some things have to cut back and they have to go.
Right.
But definitely call who you can and make arrangements and pay what you can to the things that are a priority before they get too cumbersome. I also will say that I want people to think out of the box. Um, we all work for a living and we have worked for a living. And even before Corona and recession and all this kind of stuff, if we're honest with ourselves, when we make income this way, we're living check to check no matter what income we make. I'll say it this way. If you're making $40,000, if you're making $100,000, if you're making $250,000, you're probably living check to check. If you're making $400,000 a year. And the reason I say that is because if you're making a higher income, your living expenses are higher, right? Because you live in a better house and you have a better car or whatever the case may be. Your lifestyle is different. And what I mean by check to check is the average American has less than 3 months of savings. So when their income stops, it's 3 months until they have no more resources. And most people don't even have that.
Mm.
So what I'm trying to advise that people do right now is to tweak their mind a little different. We don't have a choice because we have to stay put right now. But don't let things happen to you right now. Think of how to be proactive right now. And what's going to be given to us is not enough.
Mm.
And it's not soon enough, right? If you're just like, you know what, I'm not going to make a plan and I'm going to wait for what comes to us, they're talking about giving us $1,200 by the end of this month.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough and it's not soon enough. So
Especially in New York.
I want you guys to think like in terms of investment, like when bad things happen,
Mm-hmm.
some people really benefit because they position themselves. And
Right.
that's what I want people that look like us to do, right? If you think of what the situation is, there's opportunities in this situation. And it sounds, what's the word for it? What's the word? What is the word? It sounds bad. It sounds, it's a synonym for bad, but it sounds bad to say that there's opportunity in this downturn, but it is, right? If you think about it, everybody's hurting and the prices on everything is low, right? The last time we had a situation like this financially was the crash of 2008, right? But if you made investment moves or like business moves in 2008, if you capitalized on opportunity in 2008, you could have got houses for considerably less than what they are worth. Or you could have gotten stocks for considerably less than what they're worth. Or any asset class you can think of for less than what it's worth. If, let's put it in terms of not like stocks and houses and stuff. How much can you tell me are Louboutin shoes worth? Just a wild guess. Like 500, 800,000.
I would say probably 1,000.
So if I told you I can get Louboutins for 300,
I would say they're fake.
something you should get it. If you know all day, every day, you can sell it for 1,000 or even 900, should you buy it at 300?
Yeah, I guess to make a profit.
Yeah. If the established market value for it is $1,000, if you can get it for 200 or 300, yeah, get it and sell it. Sell it for 800. If you sell it for 800, someone thinks they got a deal, right? They're like, oh, these are $1,000. Yeah, I'll buy it for 800. But you bought it for 300, so you made 500. That's how I want us to think, right? So like when American Airlines, like weeks ago, it was $10 a share when it's usually $30 or $40 a share. Buy it. Should you buy it when it's $40 a share? No. Buy it when it's $10 a share. Right? Does that make sense? And we know like it's usual in an emergency or a crisis, we think like the sky is falling and the world's going to be over forever. No matter what happens, we recover at some point. So just think of the kind of things that'll sustain through these tough times and buy into those things while it's low. And I'm not that old. I'm only 33, but I can think of like 3 things at this point where in my lifetime where there was a huge economic impact. And they were huge events. And once they passed, things went back to normal, and they will, right? So 9/11 happened when I was in high school. And now I live in New York City, so it really had a tremendous impact, right? Once 9/11 was over, prices went back up, right? We had an all-time high in 2008, right? Then it crashed. That was a big downturn, right? Everything went under, and then we recovered, and there was a boom again. This year, right before Corona, we were at an all-time economic high, even above 2008, right? So no matter what happens, we're going to recover. So position yourself to buy into things that could sustain that. Like I feel like 20 years from now, in 2040 or 2030, 10 years from now, I feel like there's still going to be airlines, right? We got to travel, right? Who's an airline that's likely to be here? American Airlines is more likely than anybody else to be here. If someone goes under, it might be Spirit. It might be, I don't know, Frontier. I hope it's not JetBlue because I like JetBlue. But American Airlines has got to be here. Delta has got to be here. So if they're going to be here, buy it when it's really low. And I don't even like stocks, but if real estate is always going to be here, we always need somewhere to live, right?
Right.
So houses are going to be here, good times or bad times. So buy your house when it's 200,000 and not 500,000.
Right.
Or not even your house, buy an investment property. Or position yourself to and educate yourself how to do it with other people's money, because that's how investors do. Investors don't ever spend their own money. And that's a whole other topic, and I can teach people how to invest too. With other people's money, that's a different topic. But the point is, I want everybody that's listening to think of ways to make money and make their money make money and capitalize on opportunities of everything being down. Every market that we can think of is down and will be through the summer because no one is working.
Right.
So everything's going down. So if something's going down and you feel like it'll make it through this tough time, get it now while the prices are low. Now, in terms of bills and stuff, there's something I try to teach all my clients about saving and spending money, every bit of money they get. There's a principle that all wealthy people employ. And I'm sorry, everybody that's listening, if this is a really long webinar and stuff. But I'm trying to give you guys stuff that'll change your life and stuff. So thank you everybody that's tuning in. Thank you everybody that's listening to this long thing. I hope we can give you some value and stuff. There's something that all wealthy people have in common,
Mm-hmm.
or most wealthy people that I listen to have in common. They do something called paying themselves first, meaning investing first. So the first bit of money they get before they pay bills or anything else or do anything leisurely, they set aside money to save and invest. Now, that amount is usually 10%. So if you get a $600 check, you put 60 aside to invest with. If you get $1,000 check, you put what, $100 away to, I almost did math wrong. But the key is to put aside money to invest first. The reason why I say investing is because to me, anything not growing is dying. And if you save money, like money loses 3% a year. So a dollar is not worth what it used to be in 1999 now, right?
Inflation.
The buying power is less. So I don't only want people to save, I want them to invest too in something they feel comfortable with. So the first bit of money that you get, 10%, I want, and I hope someone's writing this down. I don't have the visual in front of me. I could get the visual, but it might look crazy in my email. I don't want to. Where's that visual? I can't open it up. But so 10%, I want you guys first to set aside to invest with. Another 10%, I want you to set aside to save for long-term savings and spending. That's for the house you want in the future. That's for the car you want in the future, putting your kids through school, whatever the case may be. Anything that's long-term and a big ticket item, buying a boat, I want you to save 10% for that. So 10% to invest, 10% for long-term savings. That's 20% already. The next 10%, I want you to spend on yourself. I want you to go to the spa. I want you to travel. I want you to go to the club. I want you to get your nails done. I want you to do whatever makes you happy. For me, it's concerts, it's Brooklyn Nets games. Whatever you want to do to make yourself happy and treat yourself, I want you to spend 10% on that. Then I want you to spend 55% on your bills and necessities, right? So 10% on investing, 10% on savings, 10% on yourself, 55% on your bills. Then I want you to spend another 10% on anything that either is a system that help your business grow or to improve upon yourself. 10% is for like growing the person or the business that you are. And then 5% is to give. That's like causes you believe in, charities, religion, family members, whatever the case may be. And usually if you give, that kind of energy reciprocates back to you somehow, some way. So now I know times are tough, and the last two I mentioned are optional, right? Because sometimes we have so much bills, we barely get stuff done. So if that's the case, don't spend that 10% on investing in yourself and your business and stuff. And don't spend the 5% to give away. Just roll that 15% into the bills. So necessities won't be 55%. In that case, it'll be what, 70%? Yep, 70%, right? So 10% to invest, 10% for long-term savings, 10% for yourself, and 70% for bills. Now, if you employ this strategy in like 3 months, your life will be in a completely different place than it's already been. And it sounds weird and it sounds unbelievable. It really happened to me when I learned this tactic. And I'm going to tell you the cheat code of why it works. The reason why it works if you do this is it's like going to the gym, right? If you don't have a plan, you're going to eat whatever you want. Like I used to eat pizza, Burger King, all day, every day, Wendy's, 4 for 4 every day, right? My body's not going to be the same as if I gave myself one cheat day to eat pizza, ice cream, and all that kind of stuff, right? So if you give yourself a cheat day, you're rewarding yourself, but you're also not eating all the stuff that you would eat all the time. So me giving you this 10% to splurge on yourself, that's less than what you would spend on yourself if you didn't have a plan. If you didn't have a plan, the minute you got money, you would be spending it on stuff. Here, you're only spending 10% on yourself, and the rest is going to your bills and investing and saving. So a few months in, every check you got saving 10% to invest with to make money, and another 10% to save is going a long way. You're going to have a lot more money than you otherwise would have had. So I really want people to like apply that strategy. And saving money to invest is a whole different topic that goes a long way. I don't know if I can share this screen. I'm going to try to share this screen with y'all. This is, I really want to keep this brief, so it's going to be the last thing I tell you guys, but this will change your life. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm about to show you guys something really, 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 really powerful. Compound interest calculator. Bear with me, y'all, for like 15 seconds, literally. This will change your life. And again, subscribe to her, comment if you guys have questions.
Yeah,
right, I'm gonna share
any questions yet? No questions.
I want to share this screen with you guys. I'm about to share a screen. That's really important with you guys. Here we go. Share. Can you guys see this screen now? This investor.gov screen?
Let me see.
I think I did it right. Can you see it?
Yes.
It says compound interest calculator?
Wait, no.
No?
I think it's sharing my screen. Stop screen sharing. Let me see now.
I saw it.
Yes, we can see it now. Mm-hmm.
And can you see as I'm scrolling?
I'm sorry?
Can you see as I'm scrolling? I want to make sure you guys can see it real time.
Repeat that. Your voice break up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you see as I'm scrolling down? I want to know that you guys can see it real time.
I see compound. Now I see something that says denotes a required field.
Yes. Yep. So that's it. So I'm about to show you guys what happens if you save money, right? And I'm going to show you with a very small example. So when I said pay yourself first, let's say you had $1,000 check and you're doing 10% to invest, which is $100. If you take $100 a month and every month invest $100, it's going to be a huge result that I'm about to show you right now. So can you see the numbers I'm entering in the screen right now? Like 100, 100?
100, 130.
Perfect. So what I'm about to show you is something called compound interest. This is it. Do you guys see my screen right now?
Yes.
If you saved $100 a month, every month, and the next month you saved 100 and 100. No, if you invested $100, if you invested $100 every month, at the end of 30 years, you would have $644,000. Your money would make money. Now, I'll also break it down to you this way. If you did $100 a month, 100 times 12 is what? 1,200, right? Let me put my calculator out because I don't want to give you guys the wrong math. And $100 times 12 months is 1,200, 1,200, right? Times 30 means that over 30 years, you have only spent $36,000. And that $36,000 would have made $644,000. This is if you invest. It's called compound interest. Money that money makes money. And that sounds like an alliteration or like. So let me try to say that in a not confusing way. If you invest money, your money has a rate of return for it, right? If you're investing something, you're going to earn interest. If the interest that you make, you take and reinvest that along with the money that you put in, and then take that money and reinvest it, and you keep reinvesting. All the money that the money makes, you keep putting back in. It grows exponentially. Now, at first, it doesn't grow a lot. It grows very gradually. When you start crossing like 15 years, it starts becoming like an exponential bell curve and going up a lot. Now, this is $100. I'm very sure that at some point you can invest more. At some point you get tax returns or raises or something like that. Like, this is just $100. $100 a month means you're investing $25 a week, which is $5 a day, which is like buy Starbucks coffee less. Buy coffee from home or something.
Oh, we can't buy Starbucks anymore right now.
Right. What I'm saying is like a cup of Starbucks
Right.
is worth 640. Time is going to pass anyway. So do we want to invest and make money, or do we want to keep working for money? Now, the bad news is some of us are a little older. So when we think 30 years from now, we're going to be considerably old. So the bad news is that we're learning the power of this a little too late. Like me, I'm employing it now. I'll be like 60 when I can enjoy it. But for other people, if we teach them this, like I just had a son, he's 6 months old. I'm using the same very principle right now, and I'm setting aside $100 for him. So when he's 30 years old, he'll be sitting on 600,000.
That's smart.
If you have someone that you know that's a teenager, teach them the power of this now. In 30 years, they'll be 50.
What are the things that people can invest in to take advantage of the compound interest?
There is anything they invest in will take advantage of compound interest. Now, how much, like different investments have different rates of return. Like some things have more risk, therefore they have different rates of return. My favorite asset class is both safe and lucrative. So I entered a number in here. I entered 16%, right? And that's a really high rate of return, whereas like stock markets sometimes are like 7% or something like that.
Right.
The investment I like is called tax liens. And on a whole nother webinar, you can have me on here breaking that down too, or people can Google it or read some books. Tax liens it's not a fad, it's not a craze, it's not a new investment. It is random, it's rarely talked about because most investments that are talked about, people make money from it. In tax liens, there's like no middleman really. So like if you have a job, you have a 401k and that's held by like a fund manager, right? So they're making money from putting your money in the stock market or insurance or anything like that. With tax liens, they won't really tell you about it. Just institutions will do it because it makes a lot of money. And if you research that further, the 30-second description of it, because I'll try to make it really brief, is that counties rely on property taxes to pay for everything that everybody enjoys, like sanitation, school, teachers, cops, roads, all that kind of stuff is paid for by the state or county from your tax revenue, right? So if you don't pay your property taxes, they can't pay school teachers and janitors and firefighters and cops and all that kind of stuff, right? So they need your tax money. So if you have a house, regardless of whether you own it or not, you indefinitely have to pay taxes. Now, if you don't pay your taxes, they put what's called a tax lien on your house, and they give you a certain amount of time to pay off your taxes. Some are anywhere from 6 months to 3 years. Most are like 2 years. So they'll say, Jane Doe, you owe $5,000 in taxes and you have 2 years to pay it back. But you also have to pay interest and penalties, right? So that $5,000 you owe plus 16% interest or 20% interest. Every state has a different interest rate. Some states are as high as 36% interest. Does that sound crazy to y'all? It should.
The return is as high as 30-something%.
You said what?
So the return is high as 30 something percent.
Some states, the interest rate on tax liens are 36%. Some states, they're 24%. Some states, they're 18%. Some states, they're 16%. Right? So if you Google tax liens in states, you'll see the interest rate on each. Now, it's not random. It's not a scam. These are like hundreds of years of law, right? And every state is solidified in what it is, right? So I think Jersey is 16%. I think Maryland is like 18%. Texas is like 24%. Florida is up to like 36%. Illinois is like 24%. So if you're looking at any of these states, it's consistently going to be that rate. So if you're buying Illinois property, you're getting 24% of your money. If you're buying Jersey property, you're getting, it's either 16 or 18%, right? Well, not buying property. If you're buying liens in those states, that's the interest rate. And it's stable. That's going to be the interest rate, period. So what happens is the county needs money now. The taxpayer has not paid, and they have up to 2 or 3 years to pay it back, but the county needs money now. So they go to auction and have investors give them the money now and stand in their place to receive the money back with interest. So the interest that the state charges the taxpayer, that goes to you. The taxpayer never knows that you're the investor that they're paying. They just know I owe Jersey 18% on my $5,000 tax lien, right? And you're getting money. Now, if you wonder what happens if the taxpayer never pays their money back, try to not pay your taxes on something and see what happens. What happens when you don't pay your taxes?
Right. It really bar you from a lot of things. I think even giving a passport.
No, it's worse than that. What happens when you don't pay your taxes?
IRS and new stuff, all type of interesting things.
They're coming after. And
too.
Yeah, they're garnishing. You're thinking of income taxes, right? They'll garnish your wages and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Property taxes, if you don't pay your taxes, they're taking your house.
Oh,
in those 2 years or
mm-hmm.
3 years or whatever redemption period that state has. Some states are up to 3 years, right? So that means as an investor in tax liens, you're either getting your money back with interest, a high interest rate, or you're getting the property. So it's like having the government be your loan shark.
So wait, so you can get
I'm dead serious.
Buy a tax lien instead of the cash?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
You can get the property instead of the cash?
So what happens is if they don't pay the tax lien by the redemption period, by the time that they have to pay it back, plus interest, you can foreclose on that property. And you are the first right of refusal before even the mortgage. And you get the house free and clear if you haven't gotten your money back with interest. Does that make sense?
No, got it. That's definitely good to know.
So that's what I feel like. I love it as an investment because let's say that you have you put $5,000 on the tax lien in that property in Jersey, right? You were supposed to get $5,000 plus interest, but you didn't, and you were able to foreclose on it. The property is probably going to be worth way more than $5,000.
Right.
Even if you never want to touch real estate in your life, if you don't want tenants, if you don't want to get called and collect rents and get called to fix toilets, if you didn't want it and it was a $50,000 property, you could sell it for $15,000 and get your money. And it would sell really fast because it's a $50,000 property that you're selling for $15,000.
Got it.
So I feel like that's the investment class I love the most, tax liens.
Right. It will definitely take a lot of time one day to do a investment class one-on-one with.
But the point is there are a lot of investments. Whatever investment people feel comfortable with, whether it's stocks, whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's Forex, whether it's tax liens, whether it's real estate, whatever it is, I want people to invest. And if they keep investing the money that they have, as you see here, whatever it is, I'll make it even more manageable, right? Can everybody save $25 a month?
Of course. Well, I would hope so.
So the number's not going to be as sexy if you save $25 a month, but that's $160,000. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That your money is making. So what I said that for is when we're working for money, at some point, if we're earning income, it is contingent upon us being there and spending our time and energy. At some point, we got to retire or jobs close or stuff happens like this and we can't work, and then we don't have income. We want money to make money. So that's why I said that 10% first, I want you to invest with. So you're letting money make money. Also, the tax laws in this country are made to benefit businesses and investment. They're not made to benefit people and workers, right? That's why it's the highest tax rate on earned income. It's like 35%, 40%. Whereas if you're investing, investment tax rates are like 15%. So I want us to follow the breadcrumbs, right? To do what's being incentivized. Have businesses, have investments, right? Stuff like that. So back to
a lot of information. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I guess if somebody is working with you in terms of credit repair, approximately how long would it take for you to repair their credit, or is it like a case-by-case basis?
That is a very good question. And I hope some of y'all for like at least 2 or 5 minutes ask her questions if you're tuning in. But to answer that question, that process takes, remember I told you every time you dispute with the bureaus, they have 30 days to respond?
Right.
So between the 30 days they have to respond, and I would say the time back and forth for the letters to commute, like to and fro, I'm going to say about 45 days to 90 days is generally when they have great results.
Got it.
However, whether it's 5 business days it takes to get to them and get back to you on both ends, plus the dispute time, like 40 days, 90 days. The reason I say 90 is if it went more than one round, if it went to 2 or 3 rounds. Generally, that's how long it takes to get negative items off. There's one more thing I didn't tell everybody on here that's going to save them a lot of money that's really crucial about credit. If you have collections, I absolutely do not want you to pay collections whatsoever. Now that sounds bad, and I hope no one in the collections industry comes and tries to like take me out or anything like that. But I'm gonna tell you guys why not to pay collections. As I told you guys before, everything on your credit report has to be 100% accurate, 100% timely, and 100% verifiable, right? Also, when you have collections and you pay it off, that doesn't guarantee that it gets removed from your report. I have a lot of clients that have paid for their collections, and when I get to them, they still have those negative items on their report. So if paying doesn't get rid of it, I don't see a point of paying. There's also other reasons. It's not a legitimate debt when it's a debt collection company, right? Because like I told you guys before in this conversation, the original creditor both got compensated by charging it off as a loss, and they sold the information. So the only person you owe was the original creditor, and you no longer owe them. The next person that buys it, that third party, buys the information, and they start a new account with a new number in your name. So technically, as we're fighting it, if they're being stubborn, that's technically identity theft. To open a brand new account in your name that you did not authorize. The third reason is we can remove it by disputing without paying. So why should you pay it? The fourth reason is that if you pay it, it's going to harm you, right? So if you make payments on it, let's say you owed $1,000 and they called you on the phone and said, hey, Jane Doe, can you pay this $1,000? And you're like, no, I can't really afford it. And they're like, can you pay $75? And you're like, no, I can't really afford it. All right, Jane, if you pay just $15 now, we'll work with you. They want to tell you that, right? If you made that payment, you reset what's called the date of last activity. And there's a statute of limitations for debt for 7 years. So now you reset the clock on your debt a whole nother 7 years. So paying it harms you by extending the length of time that, they can come after you. Paying it off doesn't get rid of it. You can get rid of it without paying it. You don't technically owe it because it's not in your name. You didn't authorize it. They won't have originals. You can dispute it. So I really implore people not to pay collections. There's a whole lot of other reasons, but I wanted to keep that really, really short and tell people not to pay.
I want to ask, can you sue?
Wait, someone asked, can you sue?
Can you sue them?
Absolutely, you can sue them. So there's the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So yes, you can sue them. If they have this on your report, right? If there's a collection in your report and it's not 100% accurate, 100% timely, 100% verifiable, the most important thing, verifiable, they can't prove it, right? You have a right for it not to be on your credit. If it remains on your credit, it's harming you financially, right? You're paying more on your car, your home, getting rejected, credit card, all that kind of stuff, right? That's financially harming you. You can even go so far as to say it's causing you emotional distress. You could sue for all those things. Now, the law requires that they remove those things. And if they don't, it's a violation of your rights.
Right.
It's a violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act and the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And when you send letters in writing, that's why we're doing it in writing and not online, you have proof of them receiving this and not doing anything about it. So at that point, you can sue them. And there are a lot of attorneys that will take your case for free, right? Granted, if they take your case for free up front, you probably get less on the back end and they'll get most of it on the back end. But yes, to answer your question, you can sue them.
Wow, that's so much information, but so much needed, Hannibal. I guess, where can people find you? And do you have any events coming up?
Yes. Unfortunately, Rona has ruined a lot of stuff.
Right.
A lot of stuff. I was supposed to be in Houston on April 1st to 3rd. I was, but we were supposed to be filming like a TV segment down there on financial literacy, teaching people stuff just like this. But Rona got in the way. I'm from New York, so the governor was like, anybody from New York has to be quarantined for 14 days. So I couldn't go anywhere when I was out in Texas. So no events for the next few months unless it's lives like this. Okay. But you guys can find me at on Facebook, my first and last name, Hannibal Collins. You can always find me on social media with Ficofinesse, the same thing you see right here, Ficofinesse. So it's at Ficofinesse on Instagram. It's at Ficofinesse on Facebook. I have a Ficofinesse group. Can someone type? Can we type in here? We could type in here. Right?
You can type. Are you able to see the thing to type?
I see private chat and I see live comments. So what should I click on? Live comments?
I think you can.
Oh, Queen. Hey, Candace is here?
Yeah, she say yes.
Yes. Yes. That's what the can. I should be looking at these comments, man.
She commenting away.
Candace is hilarious.
Click on live comments.
So I want to be a landlord, but I want to exist in real estate. Wait, where do I comment though? To leave a comment from my page.
Are you able to? I could never have anyone type into it before, but you could try.
I'm gonna try to leave my Facebook group for people to join. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. If this doesn't type on my end, can you just type it in for me?
Yes.
The live group. So I have a Facebook group where I give free information all day, every day. Tips and tricks. I just shared something with people about how to get a free government grant for like $10,000. I did that yesterday. Did it go into the group?
Were you able to put it in the live comment?
I couldn't put it in the live comments.
I
just put it in the private chat. So if you could see it, can you type it in to the live comment?
Let me see. You said you type it in where? The private chat?
Yeah, I typed it in private chat because I can't type it in live comments. Or if I go
see where you did it. Okay, I found it. So what I can do, I can
type that in there.
The live comment.
So yeah, on Facebook, y'all can find me on Ficofinesse. On Instagram, y'all can find me. You can always find me with Queen Blueprint on her IG. She should put her IG up. She's always tagging me.
Candace is a girl.
Yes. If you search Hannibal Collins or Ficofinesse, you should be able to find me online. You can find me on LinkedIn too. You can always call our number at Ficofinesse, which is 619-CREDIT-1. I try to make it really, really easy. 619 credit 1. So that's 273-3481 when you type it in the phone. I love Candace too. Candace is the best. You tuned in. And next time we go on live, I'll be showing like I have a terrible haircut right now. So if anybody is a barber and doesn't have COVID, please come downtown Brooklyn to hook me up.
Oh, wow. But much gratitude to you, Hannibal. Much needed information. And please subscribe and share this live. Thank you very much. Anything else? Anyone have any questions? Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up and end the live?
Yeah, I better ask some questions. And thank you, Tasha.
Thank you. No, I don't see any comments besides the sewing comment.
I hope this was helpful.
But again, you have our contact information. You have mine, and also Hannibal. And if any future question, definitely don't be afraid to hit us up.
Oh yeah, my same company, Ficofinesse at gmail.com. You can always email me as well. I want you guys to reach us. We will give you a free credit analysis, whether you work with us or not, whether you do it on your own, if you work with another company. We just want to give you an idea of like where you're at and where you should be going.
Wow, free credit analysis, y'all. You hear that? Take advantage. The more we know, the more we're empowered.
And later, Candace, thank you again, Tasha.
Thank you, Hannibal. Thank you, Candace. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And see you next time. Take care. Love and light.
Later, guys.